How's it going, everyone? Coach Javi here, Next Goal Wins TV. We're breaking down Tottenham versus Chelsea. Two main questions that I want us to answer today, or I want us to talk about. The first one, are Chelsea title contenders? Are they in a spot where we can actually say they're in the title race? The short answer would be yes, because obviously they're in second place in the Premier League behind Liverpool, Manchester City, Arsenal not having the greatest of starts to the season, but you guys know it's a lot more complicated than that when it comes to Chelsea. The second question for all of the Spurs fans that I have right now, let me know in the comment section. Should Spurs sack Big Ange Postecoglou? Is his stubbornness the reason that Tottenham Hotspur are now in the bottom half of the table, sitting at number 11? It was a really good match to watch. Lots of back and forth action. Could have gone either way. I think there was a time in which I thought Tottenham might go up 3-0 or 4-0, and then there was a time where I thought Chelsea would end up winning that game 5-2 or 6-2 even, just with the chances that they created in the second half. So let's go back to the first question. Are Chelsea title contenders? Enzo Maresca has got them playing in such an entertaining fashion. Not just entertaining, but I think he's got them playing in a way that really benefits all of their strengths. He's got really creative wingers who he pushes up into really high positions so that they can go 1-versus-1. He's got Cole Palmer playing out of his mind. I think he's the best player in the Premier League, pretty close to being considered for the best player in the world right now based on his form, playing him in that really dangerous number 10 spot. And it's a little bit tricky because he doesn't play with a back four, even though on the score sheet, on the lineup sheets, it shows them playing in a 4-2-3-1. In reality, when they have the ball, which is a lot of the time now because of Enzo Maresca's tactics and philosophy, they end up going into a 3-2-5. So we have Caicedo starting as a right back, but really he pushes into that center of the midfield, which means Enzo Fernandez can push up a little bit higher, almost creating a box with Fernandez and Cole Palmer. And that leaves Neto, Sancho, and Nico Jackson to go up a little bit higher, allowing Palmer and Enzo Fernandez to operate in that space between the back line and the holding mids, which is such a difficult place for you to defend Cole Palmer and Enzo Fernandez, because Enzo Fernandez has scored, I believe, 3 out of the last 4 games, which is an attribute that you wouldn't think that he would have. And then Cole Palmer has just been on fire, scoring goals left and right. And I mean, that penalty, are we going to talk about that penalty? The Panenka on Fraser Forster for that 4th goal was just literally cannot get any better than that. But what makes Chelsea's formation so impressive? Well, for me, I've actually found a trend amongst a lot of the really good possession-based teams, which I think started all from Pep Guardiola and his introduction of the inverted fullbacks, or his modern-day introduction of the inverted fullbacks. Teams will line up defensively with the back four whenever they don't have the ball, makes it a little bit safer at the back, a flat 4. The moment that they win possession and they establish possession, they convert into a back 3 and they push that inverted fullback into the midfield. So it's not crazy to think of Caicedo playing right back, because in reality, for the most part of the game, he's actually playing as a 6 alongside Lavia. I think we can talk about Cucurella's boots and him turning into Stevie G twice in the same game in the first 10 minutes, giving up 2 goals to Tottenham. But the reality is that wasn't a clear indicator of Tottenham being better. I think it was just him being very unlucky. And for the most part of the game, I do believe that Chelsea was the better team. So besides Enzo Fernandez and Cole Palmer being the 2 10s, they don't just sit there. A lot of times they actually make forward runs, which causes just a lot of chaos and a lot of mayhem, because anytime, for example, Sancho gets the ball and he starts driving at a player, as soon as Enzo Fernandez starts making a forward run, it forces the back line of Tottenham to have to sit back, which then allows Sancho to cut in and take a shot from outside the box, which led to that first goal for Chelsea. There's just so much coordination and movement amongst the 5 players at the front for Chelsea that it makes it extremely difficult to defend, which is why I think for Chelsea specifically, you get a lot of counterattacking goals, a lot of good build-up play goals, and just a lot of shooting opportunities from outside the box. Unless you're going to sit in and play a low block against Chelsea, they're just going to be able to pick you apart with any of those 5 players making forward runs in the attacking third. So where are Chelsea's weaknesses? Chelsea has a couple of weaknesses that I think against teams like Liverpool, Manchester City, Arsenal might get exposed. Those weaknesses are the fact that in transition, Moises Caicedo is not going to track back as fast as a typical defender would. So whenever they're building in a back 3 and they're pushing so many numbers forward, they essentially have 5 of their players on their half of the field and another 5 players in the attacking half. So those 3 center backs playing with those 2 holding center mids need to make sure that they don't lose the ball, because the moment they lose the ball, specifically against a team like Liverpool that plays with a front 3, Liverpool wins the ball in the midfield, they find Salah, they find Gakpo, they find Luis Diaz, they find Szoboszlai, they find any one of those players, and now Chelsea's defending a 4 against 3. And I do think Tottenham actually had some really good opportunities in the counterattack. They just didn't make the most of it in this game, which ultimately led to Chelsea winning. However, a better team is going to expose Chelsea in the transition moments. The other one, I still think they're missing a couple of players. Nico Jackson, while he's been a little bit more consistent, today he was really quiet, didn't have a great performance, and ultimately really didn't need to. But you would think that if Chelsea gets a world-class striker in that number 9 position, they become so much more dangerous, and I think that's when they become a team that really would be considered favorites to win the Premier League. Besides that, Sanchez, man. Sanchez is killing me. Robert Sanchez is a great shot stopper, does does well to make some really good saves, big body, athletic goalkeeper. He still makes a lot of errors in the build-up. I think naturally, if you're playing with a 3-2-5 in possession, you're going to also want to have a goalkeeper who's very good with his feet. He gives the ball away way too much, in my opinion, right now. And until he sorts out his feet and some of the decisions that he makes, I think Chelsea are always going to be a little bit exposed against better teams. Let's take a quick look at the stats. As you can see, 62% possession for Chelsea, 38% for Tottenham. Expected goals. Now, I know a lot of people are against the expected goals because it's essentially a made-up number, but I do think it tells a story. Tottenham had a lot of chances to possibly even put the game away in the first half, to make it very difficult for Chelsea to come back in the second half, and they didn't take those chances. Their expected goals 2.89 against Chelsea's 2.74. And when you're a team that does not take their chances and does not punish teams like Chelsea, you know Chelsea's going to punish you and not going to give you that same treatment. So overall, a consistent performance from Chelsea, a performance that we're getting used to seeing more often and against bigger and better teams. I don't know if I would consider Tottenham a big team this season, but Chelsea, once again, with their style, the 3-2-5, inverted fullback, pushing numbers forward, giving the ball to Cole Palmer, giving the ball to Enzo Fernandez at the top of the box, and then letting your wide creative players help you in the transition moments, in the 1v1s. Chelsea has a lot of tools to be dangerous. I'm going to give them their respect. I said this from the beginning, though. I did say Enzo Maresca was a good coach. I appreciated what he did, the risks that he took in preseason to go straight into the system that he wanted to play. And so let's finally wrap up this question. Are Chelsea title contenders? I think so. They're only 4 points away from Liverpool. Liverpool does have a game in hand still, but it's so early that a 4-point lead can switch around just like that. I think it benefits Chelsea that Arsenal and Manchester City have not had the greatest of seasons, and I think the fact that Chelsea has now gotten into a consistent rhythm is going to give them the confidence to where when they play against some of the big teams, they're going to feel like they can actually win the game. And I think it's been long enough, 15 games into the season. Enzo Maresca has established his style of play. The big question now for Chelsea is going to be, can they do this? Can they perform the way that they've been performing against Manchester City, against Arsenal, against Liverpool? And so they still have a few games to play against all three of them. If Chelsea manages to win 2 of those 3 big matches on top of consistently performing against all the other teams, I do think Chelsea has a chance. We're starting to get into that conversation with Chelsea, but that's not the only question for today. Let's finish this video off with a very, very simple question. Spurs, should they sack Big Ange Postecoglou? Is it time for him to go? Before I give you my opinion, and you know I'm an Arsenal fan, so it is very biased, I'm going to answer it this way. I'm going to say, yes, it's time to sack Big Ange, but that's not what's going to fix Tottenham Hotspur's issues. Tottenham Hotspurs have much bigger issues right now than the manager. They have a huge culture problem that ever since Mauricio Pochettino, and still a little bit with Mauricio Pochettino, they did not manage to fix. And I do think Poch got as much possible juice that he could squeeze from Spurs, and every single manager after that has ran into the exact same set of problems, which nobody to this point has been able to fix. Tottenham are not known to be big spenders. They've got some pretty good players. I don't think they have world-class players. I don't think that they have enough to really challenge for a top 4 position when you look at some of the other teams that are spending a lot more money than Tottenham. But before we go into further depth about the culture problem at Tottenham Hotspurs, let's take a look at some of the previous managers because I want to give you guys the stats. So we're going to count the last few big managers at Tottenham Hotspurs, starting with Pochettino. He had 293 games, 159 wins, 62 draws, and 72 losses, giving him a 54% win rate. And obviously, he made it to the Champions League final, started really pushing that team towards its limits. Jose Mourinho came in after Mauricio Pochettino, 51% win rate, 86 games, 44 wins, 19 draws, and 23 losses for Jose Mourinho. He said it on his way out. There's a culture problem at Tottenham Hotspurs, and you can say what you want about Jose Mourinho, but I do think he's got some truth there to the culture problem. Nuno Espirito Santo came in after. The only reason we're counting him is because obviously he's now doing a really good job with Nottingham Forest. He's been a Premier League manager across multiple different teams. He was only there to manage 17 games, 8 wins, 2 draws, 7 lost for a 47% win rate. And then after that, you had Antonio Conte at 53% win rate over 77 games, 41 wins, 12 draws, and 24 lost. So besides Pochettino, Antonio Conte was the next highest as far as his win rate with Tottenham. However, he was pretty fed up with the culture. He mentioned it multiple times, which ultimately ended up with him getting sacked because of that. And then you got Big Ange, 53 games in charge so far, 26 wins, 8 draws, 19 lost, 49% win rate for Big Ange. When you look at that, Big Ange, Antonio Conte, Nuno Espirito Santo, Jose Mourinho, and Mauricio Pochettino, he's got the second lowest win percentage with Tottenham. Now, it's not all about win percentage. You look at philosophy, you look at style of play. Big Ange is known for the high line. He's been very vocal about that, about how he wants to play, about taking the risk because he feels it's going to pay off. A method that now Hansi Flick at Barcelona has incorporated into their philosophy, which is a great tactic until somebody figures it out, which is not that hard to figure out. When everybody who's preparing for Tottenham takes a look at some video and they see how high that line is, it just becomes very easy to beat. You have Mickey Van de Ven, who's your fastest player, who's the only reason why you can even think about playing a high line, and he gets injured every other game because he's pulling hamstrings left and right with all the running that he has to do to chase players into the spaces in behind. I think ultimately for Ange, and I've said this last year when his philosophy was taking a little bit to get going, and a lot of Spurs fans were so proud about his philosophy, and this is who we are, this is Tottenham Hotspurs, we play with a high line, we're not going to change, we're not going to adapt, this is who we are. That is absolute BS. If you are a good manager, especially playing in the world's biggest league, the world's most competitive league, the English Premier League, the number one staple of you as a manager is how can you adapt? Because there's so many different styles, there's so many different ways of playing, there's so many different qualities of players that you're going to be playing against, and managers know they have so many different solutions to problems that if you only have one way of playing, the moment it gets exposed, everyone in the Premier League is going to expose it, which is why Tottenham Hotspur right now is sitting at 11th place in the table. It's a huge issue for me that Big Ange is not going to change his ways because ultimately that's going to lead him to getting sacked. Besides that, though, once they do get rid of Big Ange Postecoglou, once he's gone, and Tottenham Hotspurs are going to go through this cycle once again of a new manager, of a new philosophy and a new style of play, they're going to end up in the exact same position if they don't change the culture. And I think that starts with Daniel Levy, the chairman of Tottenham Hotspur. I think he's blind. I think he doesn't see what the real problems are. I think he's very quick to blame the managers and not his ability to be a chairman for Tottenham, his ability to find a really good sporting director, somebody who's actually been on the pitch, knows exactly what the team needs, and knows what type of player that they're looking for, because it's kind of a joke, but the truth is there's some sort of a virus at Tottenham. There's something in the walls, there's something in the air that allows for a lot of complacency, a lot of giving up attitude when things get tough. And the mentality of those players will not change until something changes much higher above the manager, which right now is Big Ange, but not for long. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below.